Alleluia, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia. Did Jesus know what was going to happen to him on that Easter morning? I'm sure he trusted that God would vindicate him. He believed that God's will would be done. But I like to think that there was at least some element of surprise in what happened to Jesus on that Easter morning so many years ago. Why? Why am I sure? Do I insist that there was an element of surprise? Simply because I think surprise is an element of the greatest human joys, and the hallmark of Easter morning for me is joy. And I'm sure it was so for Jesus as well. I'm sure he was filled with the joy of the living God. And for me, therefore, there must have been some element of surprise. But what is really the deep meaning of Easter itself? I think at the heart of Easter is the simple story that on Easter morning the good guys win and the bad guys lose. They've lost. And that means we don't need to be afraid of them anymore. We don't need to be afraid of death anymore. We don't need to be afraid of those who threaten death anymore, because death has been overcome in the resurrection of Christ. Twice in our reading from Matthew 28, which we had this morning, the disciples are told not to be afraid, and it is the commandment repeated more often than any other in our scriptures. We are not to be afraid. Don't be afraid of death. Don't be afraid of those who exercise authority through the fear of death. Perhaps especially at this time, don't be afraid of the virus. There are all sorts of prudent things that we need to do in the context of this threat to our lives and our welfare. But let's not have all of our actions guided by fear. Rather, let's see what the right thing to do by learning how to love each other. What is the most loving thing to do at this moment in time? Not what can we do because we're afraid of what might happen, but how can we best show love in this situation? Easter morning is joy. Easter morning is victory over all those forces that would take life away from us. And there is a moment of surprise in that. I think it's inevitable, it's essential. I think Jesus was surprised by exactly what happened. I'm sure he hoped, he trusted, he had some sense that there was something good coming, but the exact details, I think, surprised him. And so let's hold on to a sense of surprise and joy this Easter morning. For Alleluia, Christ is risen, and he is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Amen.